There's a lot of shocking things about a Florida tomato, but I wanted just to share one thing today. Welcome, Chef Marcus Guiliano here. It is December 2nd, and let's take a look at my garden here. That's our garden at the restaurant, and it's basically done, pretty much done. There's some kale there that we're going to keep in. We'll probably get a picking in around Easter time every year. We get a picking, then we plant new kale. There's some parsley out here still. A little more green kale over there. Huge lavender bush, bunch of thyme. And over here we had some tomatoes. I typically don't grow tomatoes because I grow one or two plants. We used to grow a lot more tomatoes here, but the tomatoes used to overtake everything. They used to grow like weeds, and if you don't have enough time to tend to tomatoes, they overtake everything because they literally grow like weeds. So now that it's December, local tomatoes really aren't in season anymore. There's a couple greenhouses around. We have a great source from the Hudson Valley, from up in, I believe, in Dutchess County, from a greenhouse. Black Horse Farms are growing awesome soil-grown greenhouse tomatoes right now. Really exciting to be using a local tomato in the off season, and they're claiming that they can get me tomatoes year-round or through the winter season until we can go back to field-grown local tomatoes. So Florida tomatoes are extremely popular right now. It's going to be the most popular tomato in all restaurants, in the grocery stores. And there's a lot of shocking things about a Florida tomato, but I wanted just to share one thing today about a Florida tomato that people that I tell this to are like, oh my gosh, I had no clue about this, Marcus. So first of all, Florida tomatoes are picked totally green, and they have to be picked green by law. That law was passed in the 1880s that you cannot ship a red tomato out of Florida. First of all, a little bit of information: the tomato industry has a very strong hold on this, on making that industry a mass industry that you can ship across the country and really across the world. Those green tomatoes are pretty much indestructible. So Florida, here's the shocking thing: Florida does not have the right soil for tomatoes. Tomatoes are native to deserts in South America. The original tomato plant is from down there, and of course nothing like a beefsteak tomato that you see in the grocery store that you get now, those big red tomatoes. They were crossbred for different characteristics which got them larger over the years. And it's only been in the last 200 years or so, 250, 300 years, that tomatoes have really developed to what they are today. However, Florida is the wrong climate to grow tomatoes. Where tomatoes are native to is very dry, arid. It's a desert. It's basically a desert. Florida is not a desert, folks. Florida has a lot of rain, a lot of humidity. So that moisture content, that humidity plays a problem. It wreaks havoc on tomatoes. They need a lot of pesticides, fungicides, herbicides. They need a lot of chemicals, basically. Now, tomatoes in Florida are basically grown in pure sand, just like the beach, pure sand. That's not what tomatoes typically grow in. That's not what they're native to. So they need to then add more fertilizers, more chemicals to the land to be able to make tomatoes grow. The only reason why tomatoes are grown in Florida is because it's really the only part of the U.S., southern Florida, that has that warm climate year-round that is remotely what a tomato needs. So, on a mass scale, of course. So unless you're using a greenhouse up here in New York. And greenhouses are all over the country. You can't do that. But let's face it, to build massive greenhouses is a big expense. Growing tomatoes in southern Florida in massive fields is a much more economical way. Well, you'd think it's a much more economical way. So here's the most shocking thing about Florida tomatoes. Because it's not the right condition, because it's too much humidity, the soil's not right, there's not enough nutrients in the soil, it takes about $2,000 of chemicals, fertilizers, chemicals, pesticides per acre of tomatoes. That's right, folks, $2,000, let's just call them chemicals, $2,000 worth of chemicals to grow a standard Florida tomato per acre. per acre, and that's in the wintertime. The season is now until I think May or something is the season, May or June, and it's about a 7, 8, 9 month season down there. That is an insane amount of chemicals to grow tomatoes. $2,000 per acre it costs to grow tomatoes. So the question is, how in the world do they get tomatoes so cheap? Because restaurants can go to the store, to like a Restaurant Depot or to a Cisco or one of those big warehouses and get tomatoes for like $1 a pound. It's just insane how cheap they can be by the time they're shipped up here and ripened with gas. There's a lot of other issues that happen with tomatoes, which is why they're so cheap, because of very, very unfair labor. A lot of people down there don't abide by the labor laws. They pay contractors, they pay immigrants, they pay illegals about $1 a bucket to pick tomatoes, and they charge them for everything, to take showers, they charge them for housing, they charge them for terrible food, they charge them for transportation, and a lot of these people, like I said, are illegal, so they're afraid to go to the local police, because in their countries, the local police are corrupt in most of these countries. So the labor down there is extremely dirt cheap and very, very unfair in a lot of those bigger operations. Some of them are totally legit, some of them do a great job, and there are some good Florida tomatoes out there, folks. There are some ones that are doing a better job, like Lady Moon Farms. Lucky Farms does a good job. Lady Moon does a really, really good job with their organic tomatoes from Florida, 100% organic Florida tomatoes. They're not spraying all those funky chemicals, and they're not using that $2,000 worth of chemicals per acre of tomatoes. So that's the good thing about Lady Moon. Lady Moon also has a farm in Pennsylvania. And they actually give their employees free housing, I think in the Carolinas and in Pennsylvania in the off-season. They can come pick tomatoes, which is our high season here. So very, very reputable farm. So there are some really good farms in Florida that are doing it right, that might have a little better soil, but that basic tomato that you buy in the store is grown in pure sand. There's nothing to the sand, so they have to add all that stuff to it. And they have to be picked green by law, folks. You're not allowed to ship a really red tomato out of Florida, because they have a very, very strong hold on what a Florida tomato is supposed to be like. Since the 1880s, that was passed, the Florida tomato industry. So yeah, $2,000. That's when I read that statistics, I was shocked. I said, how in the world can you put down $2,000 worth of chemicals per acre? But that's what they have to do, so restaurants can have tomatoes year-round in North America here. I guess it's a big price or a small price, however you look at it, to pay to get a tomato. I know I personally, when I go out, I won't eat a tomato that gets put on a plate. In fact, I ask them to always hold the tomatoes, unless I know that tomatoes are coming from a very reputable source, but that's just too far in between. So tip of the day, Florida tomatoes. Hope that helps you make better eating decisions and educate yourself. If you like this, please hit the like button. I would say subscribe if you're on YouTube, please, and give it a big share. Thumbs up. Thank you for watching.